The sustainability solutions that are scaling the fastest are when financials work. Everybody wants to help the environment, but if there's a material hit to the bottom line, we're seeing those not scale to the level they need to, or not have the actual benefit that they were expected to have. The economic benefit from doing this is not a nice to have, it's really a must to have.
Welcome to Sustainability Leaders. I'm Michael Torrance, Chief Sustainability Officer at BMO. On this show, we will talk with leading sustainability practitioners from the corporate, investor, academic, and NGO communities to explore how this rapidly evolving field of sustainability is impacting global investment, business practices, and our world.
The views expressed here are those of the participants and not those of Bank of Montreal, its affiliates, or subsidiaries.
I'm Caroline Donlin, Managing Director and Head of Engineering and Construction at BMO. In today's episode of Sustainability Leaders, we're diving into the future of sustainable construction with two industry leaders who are reshaping how we think about concrete. When I speak to clients across the building and construction sector, I hear a lot about rising costs, labor shortages, and economic uncertainty. The need for cost-effective, innovative solutions with a low environmental impact has never been greater in the sector. In fact, concrete's key ingredient, cement, all by itself generates an estimated 7% of the world's CO2 emissions. Joining me today are Kristal Kaye, Interim CEO of CarbonCure, and Marty Ozinga, CEO of Ozinga, to discuss how their partnership is driving meaningful change in the world of green building materials and addressing common challenges in the industry. CarbonCure's cutting-edge technology enables concrete producers to reduce carbon emissions without compromising performance. Ozinga has been in business for nearly 100 years, providing concrete, bulk materials, and energy solutions, as well as transportation services to an extensive network of truck, rail, barge, and ship terminals. Welcome, Kristal and Marty, and thanks for joining the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I'm so excited to dive in. I'll go ahead and start with Kristal. Kristal, could you set the scene for us by describing what are the challenges that CarbonCure is addressing through its unique mission?
Thank you, Carolyn. The scale of global construction is really hard to put into words. In effect, the world is building a new New York City every month. Most of that is infrastructure, housing, and commercial centers will be built with concrete. It's the world's most used building material, thanks to its versatility, reliability, and durability. That figure you cited, 7% of global CO2 emissions from cement manufacturing, to put that in perspective, that's 3 times the global footprint of global aviation, and it's massive. We can't get to net zero if we don't develop and deploy a set of solutions for these emissions. CarbonCure has partnered with hundreds of producers across 24 countries, Ozinga being one of the top users of our tech, both in terms of volume of concrete produced with our technologies and in terms of CarbonCure carbon savings. Our technologies enable producers like Ozinga to permanently store captured CO2 in concrete and allows them to adjust the amount of emissions-intensive cement in their mixes. Less cement means less emissions, but as important, less material costs for manufacturers. For every metric ton of CO2 reduction, CarbonCure also generates carbon credits. Our carbon credit revenue sharing program neutralizes the cost of the technology for our producer partners, and it removes an adoption barrier for our technology by unlocking the opportunity to win new green building projects. We know that cost scrutiny is intensifying across the sustainability space. Solutions must be economically viable to achieve a sustainability impact.
Kristal, thanks for framing what we're talking about here. I'd love if you could explain more about how CarbonCure's technology works and what makes it distinctive in the sustainable building material space.
Yes, for sure. CarbonCure's solution is a drop-in technology, so it easily integrates with existing plant operations and batching softwares in a number of concrete producers around the world. More important, it's stackable, so it can be used with other sustainability solutions, such as lower carbon cement materials, cement replacements like fly ash or slag, or other products. Our tech allows producers to displace the amount of cement inputs and replace it with CO2 that is permanently stored in the concrete without affecting its quality or specifications. So what makes us unique is that we're transforming carbon from a waste into a valuable resource.
That's wonderful. How do you see the role of partnerships like the one that you have with Ozinga in accelerating the adoption of green concrete solutions?
Carolyn, our partnerships are essential. Without the success of our customers and without visionary producers like Ozinga, we need early adopters and committed leaders that will embrace innovation and achieving sustainability. Together, our partner producer network, we just delivered our 10 millionth truckload of CarbonCure concrete, which has saved nearly 700,000 metric tons of CO2. Out of the hundreds of CarbonCure producers, I would say Ozinga is one of our top producers. Ozinga alone has produced 1.2 million truckloads of CarbonCure concrete to date, and over 200,000 just this year. Without producers adopting the tech, we can't grow.
That's wonderful. Marty, I want to turn the conversation to you now. What motivated Ozinga to partner with CarbonCure, and what impact has the collaboration had on your customers and your business?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. We've always been interested in new technology, innovation in our space, things that create value add for our product. And so we've always been on the lookout for those. And so it was natural for us to embrace something that was new and different for our industry. And what appealed to us was that it was fairly seamless with integrating into our plant, but also seamless to our customer. It wasn't like a big disruption as far as the production of concrete or as far as the, how the product performed in the field. We weren't asking a green premium of our customers in order to do it. It was just more like a margin improvement for us to drop it in to our system. And so I think that's why it's gotten the traction it has and the scalability it has, because it's really a seamless integration into the whole process. It ultimately does decarbonize the concrete, and it doesn't have any deleterious effects on the performance of the concrete. It really just enhances the performance of the concrete. From our standpoint, we're a ready-mix concrete supplier, and we're not in the Portland cement manufacturing business. So we're fairly agnostic when it comes to new technology that might disrupt or lessen Portland cement. So sometimes in our industry, you have vertically integrated cement companies that may not be as quick to adopt technology that's using less cement per se at the concrete plant. And, in our case, we don't manufacture Portland cement, so we're not as concerned about using less Portland cement. And so I think all of those factors combined made it a good fit for us.
Marty, I'm curious, besides companies that are more vertically integrated in manufacturing the Portland cement, what other kind of barriers do you see to adoption of a technology like this from the manufacturer side?
I think a lot of new technology there's questions about how seamless it is to use and how much of an extra amount of effort it is. When you get right down to the concrete plant, you really need to have high production and not disruptive sort of things that really change how you do things. But I think for new technologies, I think for people to be thinking about is how do we make this as easy to use, user-friendly as possible, and is the price point competitive in the marketplace? I think those are two key factors that someone should be thinking about as they think about new tech in our space. I think of like the plasma screen TV back when we were young, it was like 25 grand. And now you go get one at Walmart for like $200. It really is economies of scale as the technology sort of evolves. There's just going to be economies of scale to help drive things as there is more demand. But what happens is if there's a new product and a contractor is not used to it, he's going to build that risk factor into his price. And then it just keeps building on itself. It's not the product itself that's the premium. It's the risk that's built in that really becomes the big premium, the risk of the schedule, the risk to some other exposure. And as people get comfortable with the new tech, it'll definitely take time, but it'll come down in price. And that's really been what CarbonCure, it's so seamless that in every respect that's the reason it's scaled.
I think you're spot on. And you hit on this a little bit in terms of how seamless it was, both from a production standpoint as well as a customer standpoint. But from the customer's perspective, are there any key challenges in adopting sustainable concrete solutions, or any key concerns from a risk standpoint or from a quality standpoint that companies are focused on?
I think there's many different solutions being proposed right now, and ones that some are seamless and some are not seamless. And so I think, the end user, whether it's the concrete supplier or the concrete contractor putting it in place, definitely needs to be mindful of, new technology and how it can impact schedule or finishability or durability or other things, because have been introduction of new technology, and maybe it's happened too quickly and people haven't made the adjustments that need to be made. And then you get callbacks and other problems. So there's lots of technologies trying to be introduced because of this issue. And there could be change. Not all are as seamless as CarbonCure has been.
How do you see the future of this technology evolving in the sector that you're working in for customers as well as for the environment?
So I think it's an issue that doesn't seem to be going away worldwide. This issue of trying to decarbonize, all aspects of products and services. Part of the issue right now, depending on the jurisdiction, a lot of it continues to be voluntary. And yet there's a lot of people trying to get ahead of any kind of mandates that would be in place or incentives, whether it's sticks or carrots, it's to be determined depending on where you are. But I think the issue that's really critical is measurement and making sure that there's third-party verification of the measurement, because you can't really manage what you don't measure. And so in our industry, in a lot of industries, you have environmental product declarations that are measuring the global warming potential of the product itself. So every one of our mixes is measured in this regard, how many kgs of CO2 each mix represents. And then as part of our submittal, we give that to the end user, and they can start a process of carbon accounting to determine how to compare one bid versus another. And it starts to become part of the evaluation process of the value that's being delivered. And it's early days on a lot of that, but that's certainly gaining momentum throughout the industry.
When you say early days, how long have you been a part of this program or focused on helping solve this problem?
Well, it really goes back quite a long time, and it's had a number of iterations. That the U.S. Green Building Council and LEED, and some of these things have been around for 25 years, where people have been interested in, how to make buildings, greener and finding ways to do those things. The focus really, I would say, in the last 6 or 7 years, definitely has turned to CO2 specifically, and decarbonizing concrete and other products, specifically targeting CO2. We're seeing it a lot with the tech companies with their data centers. They're voluntarily starting to look to have net zero goals by 2030 with emissions, which is concrete is a part of. And so that's a significant sort of focus right now, because it is a large part of the building landscape is the data centers, and the tech companies are voluntarily making these commitments without government intervention. And so I think the industry is focused there.
That's wonderful. And it really does feel like the tides have turned in the last 6 to 7 years, as you mentioned. I'd love to hear what you both think about this next question. And perhaps first I'll start with Kristal. With economic uncertainties lingering, what are you finding are some of the biggest challenges for end customers to implement sustainable concrete solutions?
As Marty mentioned in his previous comments, I think part of it is change. The concrete industry has been around for a very long time, and it can be difficult sometimes to have new customers sign on to believe in the tech. I would also say, historically, as a startup, we weren't always focused on the right customers and ensuring that our product will work, and it is easy to drop in, but there are nuances in terms of how the mixes work. Every customer does some things differently. There's always new technology coming along. And so we actually have taken a step back in the last couple of years to really rewind and refocus our efforts to really hold hands with and partner with our customers to be successful. Things like pre-testing the cement that they're using and the products that they're using, and pre-testing before we do a full rollout. Things like that help make them drive success. The other factor is fear of cost and change. So when you use our technology or any other really green technology, it's a change in how concrete producers are producing their product. And there is obviously a cost to it. And so we try to mitigate that through the carbon credit savings program, and as well in being able to have and show through the data, like Marty mentioned, the cement savings, so that customers will realize and producers will realize that there is the possibility to at least break even, and really just to encourage adoption. I think part of the other challenge is around specifications in the actual building bids themselves. So we need to ensure that more people are asking or scoping in green concrete or green products. I think that would help get more producers to adopt in and take the technology or try to make more environmentally conscious changes.
Marty, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I would say our customer is the concrete contractor, and they're paid to deliver projects on time and on budget. Schedule is a critical piece of what they're demanded to do, and they put those demands on us. And so it's just really important that we're serving the needs of our customer by getting them, not affecting the quality of the concrete so that there's no callbacks, or the ability to keep them on schedule. And obviously they are price sensitive. So as they put their proposals together in front of their client, we're starting to see, as there's more traction and interest from the owner of the project, that certain progressive contractors are willing to try new things. But it does take preparation on their part to make sure that if there is changes to their systems, that they're trying to mitigate risk to make sure that there's no issues for them with regards to schedule or price or quality. But the progressive customers of ours are doing their due diligence, preparing for if and when their client may be asking for this.
I'm curious kind of how this is distinguishing your bids versus companies that aren't adopting this, and how developers and other kind of ultimate end users think about this in the grand scheme of things.
It's a bit of a push-pull. There's clients that's saying publicly that they have these net zero goals, that they want to do these things, but they're under intense pressure. Like, take the example of data centers, getting them up and running. It's a race to get how fast they can do these things. And they don't want to introduce, there's tension between these goals that they want to meet, but also schedule. So, we're trying to, again, from our point, is deliver something that is not going to affect schedule, is not going to create a premium that they can't get comfortable with, and make sure that they feel comfortable that it's safe and durable and the concrete's going to perform long term, and then they're not going to have any issues with the concrete itself. So it's a long process of getting all the parties at the table who want to be at the table, whether it's the client or the general contractor, the developer, the concrete contractor, the concrete supplier, the people with the new tech there's a lot of parties that come together in order to help make it happen.
Well, it certainly takes leaders like yourself in order to make bold change. And as a leader in the space, I'm curious, what's one bold step you believe the industry must take in the next year to truly move the needle on improving resilience and reducing environmental impact?
I think the biggest thing continues to be transparency of the data, just making sure that, everybody has good, high quality data that they can trust. Otherwise, there's accusations of greenwashing or just being a bunch of baloney or whatever. So, I think integrity and trust in the data that's validated and verified by third parties, that will help everybody get comfortable with what's real versus, some sort of greenwash situation.
I think that's an excellent point, and one that I hear frequently as well, is the importance of data and making sure it's transferable from company to company and that there are standards. So I totally agree with you. Kristal, what about from your chair in terms of one thing you'd like to see happen in the next year in order to really move the needle?
I would agree with Marty. Data is key. We're focused ourselves right now on ensuring our customers have the data on hand to show them specifically what the CO2 impact they're having in their business, how they could do better, where they have batches perhaps where they haven't used our product as much as they could, or what the potential the cement savings could be. And then the other piece is, I think for skeptics or people who aren't bought in to the tech, we're actually working with MIT right now on a tech validation study and they're testing our tech and helping us put together a validity sort of report plus actual visual material to be able to show people how the technology is working. And I think that third-party validation will help support. I think the other piece is really around buy-in. As Marty noted, having that end user want to spec in green project, green building material, and really putting green concrete in a scope. We've had customers bid on projects whereby they've actually spec'd in CarbonCure concrete at the start of the bid, and it's enticed customers to come to us and want to sign up. And by the end of the bid, it's not a requirement.
Fabulous. So thank you so much, Kristal and Marty. Before we wrap, I'd love to hear any closing comments you have for our listeners. Marty, I'll start with you.
I really appreciate the conversation. We're a 100-year-old company in a couple of years. We really view ourselves as stewards in many respects of the company, but also the community and the environment. And so it's really in line with our purpose and our worldview to try to figure out how we make our product in line with best practices and the environment. And it's exciting to us to find new technology like CarbonCure and others. There's never been a more exciting time in our industry because of this issue. Really, we see a lot more talent and money flowing into our space when it comes to technology. And that's, for someone who's been in the industry for me for over 25 years, that's really exciting to me to see young people and talent and money flowing into our space to bring new technology and see new startups all over the space addressing this issue. I talked about the data centers and the hyperscale clients that really have these goals for 2030 net zero goals, including their scope 3 emissions. And there's so much concrete going in these data centers. We've adopted, because of that's their goal, we've adopted the same goal. We want to make net zero carbon neutral concrete by 2030. And we have an R&D lab where we're actively working to create new products and technologies and embracing new startups in our lab, working closely with a lot of startups to figure out how do all these technologies complement each other, because it's not just one silver bullet. There's a whole bunch of technologies that come together, including CarbonCure, to get us to net zero carbon neutral concrete to meet this goal that the client ultimately is asking for.
I agree with you, Marty. I think it's a very exciting time to be a part of the industry and a part of the change and the solution. Kristal, any closing comments from yourself?
Yes, thanks, Caroline, for having me today. I would say that if you look around the globe, the sustainability solutions that are scaling the fastest are when financials work. Everybody wants to help the environment, but if there's a material hit to the bottom line, we're seeing those not scale to the level they need to, or not have the actual benefit that they were expected to have. The economic benefit from doing this is not a nice to have, it's really a must to have. And the solution needs to be able to work both commercially as well as in a lab. So I think there's a lot that can be done there, and the needle is moving on a constant basis. As Marty mentioned, people are developing new products, they're in the labs, they're working, they're trying new things to have a greater impact more quickly. In order for us to be successful, we need to focus on our customers' needs and priorities. We need to help market and entice end users to scope in green concrete as part of their construction and their builds. And centering on them and their success will really help us be successful. There's a lot of conversations that some people are pulling back from their commitments. Some people are not as vocal about the commitments they made in light of where we are today. I would say that actually it's probably not the case. We're not finding it. I didn't find it when we were in Climate Week earlier this year. It might not be as advertised or as communicated, but I do think the underlying corporations and general construction industry are committed to the commitments that they made. I do think people are maintaining their commitment on decarbonization in general, and I'm hoping that that will help also entice more people to buy in.
Well, I'm excited to see the continued impact that your company is able to make. Kristal and Marty, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights from your important work. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to tune in to Set in Stone, a great new podcast hosted by Marty about people who share Ozinga's purpose to make a positive impact on individuals, families, and communities. You can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Sustainability Leaders. This podcast is presented by BMO. You can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. Press the follow button if you want to get notified when new episodes are published. We value your input, so please leave a rating, review, and any feedback that you might have, or visit us at bmo.com/sustainability leaders. Our show and resources are produced with support from BMO's marketing team and Puddle Creative. Until next time, thanks for listening and have a great week.
For BMO disclosures, please visit bmocm.com/podcast/disclaimer.